my name is Dr. Alberto Quinonez, and I am the Engineering Technology Department Chair of Austin Community College. Welcome to this episode of The Forum on ACCTV. The Forum is a roundtable talk show that gives us a place to openly discuss important topics concerning ACC and our community with various guests. Today, we will be talking about the advanced manufacturing industry in Central Texas, which has vastly changed and modernized over the years and is currently experiencing a real boom in our local economy. But what do people do in this industry exactly? Who are the companies involved in this field and which are hiring? And why should people be paying attention to this ever-emerging industry? These and other questions will be answered in today's segment of The Forum. For starters, let's look at some data which can be found on the Austin Regional Manufacturers Association, ARMA website. Did you know that there are over 1,600 manufacturing businesses in the Austin Central Texas corridor and growing, including some large names such as Samsung, Austin Semiconductor, Applied Materials, and now Tesla. The manufacturing sector accounts for over 65,000 jobs, and the demand keeps growing. It contributes over $12.5 billion to the local GDP. It is one of the higher paid fields to work in, generally over 73% higher than the industry average. There are many career entry points for people, starting with jobs like assembler and process operators, for those with minimal skills and training, all the way to technicians, engineers, and supervisor positions for those with higher skills and education. So we are here today with a great panel of folks to break it down for our audience. We hope to inspire you and to educate you about these exciting careers available to you in the manufacturing industry. We feel that this is especially important because this industry is booming in Austin and Central Texas. Joining me today is Dr. Laura Marmolejo, who is a department chair for advanced manufacturing at Austin Community College. Kimberly Duren, or Kim Duren, who is the Mechanical Computer Aided Design Coordinator and Advisor for the Department of Architectural and Engineering Computer Aided Design at ACC. And Ed Latson, the Director of the Austin Regional Manufacturer Association. Thank you all so much for being here with me today. Let's get started. Generally speaking, I want to go back to defining in simple terms what manufacturing is. Let's play a quick video that helps define this for our audience today.
So in the past, turn of the century with the Industrial Revolution, when manufacturers would build all sorts of things, industrial equipment, automobiles. Over the years, it's become fully automated or more automated, telecommunications, transportation, aeronautics.
Rockets that go into outer space and deliver satellites, from chips that go into your cell phone to some of the fastest computers. It's very diverse. Austin and Central Texas employs over 65,000 people in the manufacturing space. It's a $12.5 billion industry, and some of the most advanced products in the world are made right here. And ACC is a bridge to get employed by manufacturers.
You're going to be able to program robots so that you can do this automation to build your car or an iPhone or an iPad. And I think it's a great opportunity because if you go through this program and you end up working for a Samsung or Applied Material, you're going to enjoy your life.
I took manufacturing classes here at ACC because there's lots of hands-on labs, the professors are very helpful, and I was able to use those skills I learned from those labs to transition myself into a career.
So after seeing the video, what would you add here, Ed, to help further define manufacturing and the industry itself? What is it exactly? Are there different sectors and tracks under its umbrella that do different things?
Well, I think it's a terrific video, Alberto, and manufacturing is a really diverse and interesting sector. A lot of it was captured there. In Austin in particular, there's so much to offer. I mean, there's computer electronics, there's biopharmaceutical, there's medical devices being made here, there's, aerospace, and now a really budding and growing electric vehicle cluster. And not just Tesla, who's obviously anchoring that, but a lot of small and medium-sized startups as well. So it can really span a lot of different products. Another interesting thing about manufacturing is it's really just taking raw materials and turning it into something different and more valuable, and that can take the shape of a lot of things. Even like a food manufacturer, a restaurant that's packaging food and shipping it out to customers technically could be considered a manufacturer. So
Kim, how do you think manufacturing has changed over the years? These jobs used to be more what some might say a factory or assembly line worker, but that isn't the case anymore, is it? I mean, what is manufacturing today, and why does it provide a great opportunity for those entering the workforce?
Thanks, Alberto. I think the more pertinent question is what has not changed. Automation has come full force, and what is still lacking or is always going to be needed is a human interaction. Human interaction and analysis, design. First you have to design something, then you have to plan it, and then you have to analyze what's been done. So human interaction is going to be used all throughout the whole process. We see that things used to be made maybe manually, but now things are more automated. So understanding the technology and that automation process from design through inspection, through shipping, that's all part of the process, and it is becoming automated, but human interaction is still needed. That human factor of analysis and kind of reasoning is always going to be required.
That's a very good point, Kim. Oftentimes people think their jobs are being replaced by automation, but it's not that jobs are being replaced. It's just that maybe menial jobs or repetitive jobs are better done by machines, and then that frees humans to do those jobs which you mentioned, right? The design, the analysis, that human interaction that really is needed to drive a process. Thank you. Okay, the next question is for Laura. So Laura, prior to working at ACC, you were an engineer in the manufacturing industry. Talk about what attracted you to the field and what you liked most about it.
Okay, well, I'll be honest with you. What attracted me to the field was the money. When I heard you could make great money, they got my attention. But once I learned a little bit more about manufacturing, I realized that that was truly my passion. Really, the main reason is because I like to see how things are made. And more importantly, I think it's exciting to be able to take processes and improve them and innovate them and make them better. So technology has really changed over the last 20, 30 years in my lifetime. And I think people take for granted the technology they use every day. But once you really see what it takes to go from, a flip phone to a high-tech, a smartphone and what's involved, it's really amazing. And that continues to amaze me still today after all this time. So that's why I love manufacturing, because you can see how things are growing and developing over time, and then you can make an impact to make it better.
Thank you, Laura. Definitely a very rewarding career where you can see how your contributions lend to some of the great products and technologies that we use today. All right, the next question is for all three of you. What makes someone a good fit for this industry? Is there a specific set of skills, trades, or personality that someone has to have in order to thrive in this industry? So, Ed, let me start with you.
I think one of the interesting things is there's so many different roles within manufacturing that you can probably find your place there, whoever you are and whatever you're bringing to the table. But, certainly what I hear from owners and leaders is they want people that show up to work every day, ready to solve problems, ready to work with their team members and, get product out the door, because a lot of these folks are under significant time pressure to deliver to their customers, and they want people that can really get behind an effort and add value to that group. So I would explore the different opportunities and find out where you fit, because I'm sure there's a place.
Yeah, many people don't know, as you mentioned, that especially the very large manufacturers, they're almost a microcosm of a small city. So you can find every type of job in that company. Kim,
Yeah.
what type of student person would be a good fit for this field?
I would say for any field, I don't care how long you've been in the industry, you need to remain teachable. We're all expanding. Everything is changing every day, every minute. And so for me, for anybody, we all have to remain teachable. A desire for growth or a growth of knowledge, and being inquisitive, wanting to know how something's done, wanting to know how to make something better. You have to kind of understand how it's done. So, understanding the processes, you're going to be continually growing because processes are always going to change, whether it's design, manufacturing, or delivery. Everything is changing. So being flexible and wanting to learn and wanting that change, things are going to change whether we like it or not. So we have to be really, really flexible with that, and the desire for growth. You want to grow yourself within to meet those challenges.
Kim, those are very important traits that you mentioned, and probably as Ed, I would guess, would say that a lot of these companies are having a hard time finding skilled technicians, skilled workers, and as you mentioned, not everybody is going to go in, with the right skills right away. But if they're willing to learn, that's what you're saying, right? If they're willing to learn, willing to grow, willing to be a team player, and that's the kind of people that I think would do very well. So I really appreciate those comments. And now let's hear from Laura.
I'll speak from a student perspective. I always tell my students that it's important to do two things. One is you can't get frustrated when things don't work. So that's an important personality characteristic that I think you need, because I think of those things as challenges. When things don't work and things are not doing what you want them to do, then that's where you have to dig deep and figure out, what can we look at next to try to solve a problem. So being persistent in solving a problem and not getting frustrated or giving up is totally a big part of technician and engineering roles. And beyond that, I think it's like both of them mentioned it, being a team player, you get more results or better solutions when you listen to all perspectives. So having that flexibility to listen to other people who think different than you, and really looking at how you can find the best solution based on everyone's feedback, I think is also important, to be open to that kind of input from others.
We're going to take a short break, and we will be back with more in just a bit.
This is where you will push your limits. This is where you will reach new heights, where you'll learn, you'll laugh, where you'll make memories that will last a lifetime. This is Riverbat Country. Riverbat Country is your new home, and it's more than you ever expected. Here, you'll make connections.
I feel like I'm a part of something bigger, as in towards the community. So I really feel like I'm more connected here.
Riverbat means you're part of the family.
Here, you'll find adventure, opportunity, and the support to help you reach success.
You get some real-world applications into what you're working towards.
I never really thought of myself as a leader or someone that would go out in the community, but here I am.
They try to set you up for success. It's set up where you can go directly into the job market, and I think that's great. You don't have to go to a four-year institution to get a good job here in Austin.
In Riverbat Country, we stand beside you. We help you find your passion, and we cheer you on through every step and every class.
I realized that, there's so much opportunity here that I didn't think I was going to get. So I'm really happy about that. And I totally changed my perspective of community colleges as well.
Being able to experience new things that you've never really experienced before.
This is where you will start something big. This is where you will discover your future, and it's a bright one. Because when you start here, you get there. This is what happens when you choose ACC first.
Welcome back to the forum, where we are discussing the growing and vast world of manufacturing and the booming opportunities available to Central Texans right now. Now that we have defined manufacturing and the industry a bit further, let's talk about the actual jobs in the sector and the career trajectory involved. You know, some common job titles that you can find when doing a job search are things like manufacturing technician, production worker, machine operator, production associate, assembler. Uh, can you break down some of these jobs? What are the basic job duties they entail? What are some commonalities? And can you talk about the industries or companies in the area that hire for these type of positions?
So I'd like to kind of put all those jobs into two prime categories. The first one I say is more the production worker, the production associate, or something having to do with production. And they're usually the first level of entry into these manufacturing companies. And their job really is to learn as much as possible. So they're dealing with operating procedures, assembling parts, learning to use the tools effectively to build their components, maybe collecting information, loading product or transporting product, or basically monitoring the process. So that's a key part of that first role. As they grow, they would be able to move into a higher skilled job and develop skills. And then the second big chunk of jobs are in the technician level area. And the technicians are at this point a little bit more skilled, a little bit more knowledgeable about the products. And so they're involved with calibrating equipment, fixing failures, testing new ideas, and really maintaining the operation at the company. And here in Austin, we deal with so many companies that have these roles. Again, we've dealt with the semiconductor sector. Of course, Samsung's one of our largest players here, and Applied Materials as well. And then we have other areas that are more like defense products, such as BAE systems. And then, like Ed said, it goes all the way to mid-level and small companies in the area that we partner with to try to produce students that have the skills that they need. We have companies that build robots, companies that build parts for these bigger companies. And we try to support all these companies by teaching these skill sets so that a person can come into a job and be able to be a contributing employee for the company. So yeah, I'd really like it to look at it in two groups: as entry level, learn as much as you can about the technical environment and the technical product, and then the technician level, which is a little bit more education, a little bit more skill set. And now you're really the one that maintains it by fixing and improving the current existing infrastructure that's there.
Thank you, Laura. That's very exciting to know that there are jobs for all different types of people and a diverse set of companies that they can apply to. The next question is for Ed. As the director of ARMA, you represent a consortium of local manufacturers. Can you talk about the type of entry-level jobs that the companies are hiring for? Obviously, the companies in ARMA are diverse. So is there a common skill set that they are looking for? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think Laura did a great job of really talking about what somebody new in the industry might experience or what companies are looking for. We have 1,800 companies within ARMA's space, and we surveyed them fairly recently, and what we saw was a big demand for assemblers and technicians. And you can think about that as people really putting together different components to make a product. That's really common in an electronic type manufacturing environment. And that's a space that Austin's really strong in. We have some really fantastic electronic manufacturers here. A lot of people don't know that Apple makes its most powerful computer here at Flextronics, right off 183. And Applied Materials is making some of the most sophisticated equipment in the world. Their tools cost $10 to $15 million and go into semiconductors to make chips. So they need skilled people that can solve problems and follow directions.
And besides those common entry-level type skills, can you talk about the needs for higher skilled jobs? I assume they also have a need for people with more experience, more education, and a higher skill set.
Absolutely. The demand for workers is across the board. I think Kim had a great point early on in this program when she talked about how things have moved to much more automation and machine-driven kind of production. People need to be able to interface with technology drive that technology, but also fix the technology if it's broken. So, you have to have engineers and high-level technicians to really come in and keep those plants running. And those are great jobs, that it requires some skill and some education, but they pay a lot of money and can really give somebody a pathway to a very comfortable lifestyle.
And that's definitely a great incentive for those careers, right? They're challenging, they're a lot for growth, and they pay very well. Okay, next question is for Kim. In your department, the jobs and fields students go to are very diverse as well. However, can you talk about manufacturing from your perspective? Talk about the companies and their needs for people who have an interest and skill set in mechanical computer-aided design.
First off, I just want to talk about the architectural and engineering department. That is not just mechanical and architectural, that's civil as well, integrated circuit design, and printed circuit board layout. So with the onset, if you think about a product being delivered, you have to have roads that are designed to get that product to be delivered. You have to have buildings with infrastructure, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, for those products to be created and processed. And then in the forefront of all that is design. So we might actually design the machines to make those parts or design the parts to be produced. So there are so many companies in Austin. If you think about the breadth of that, that's huge. That's from ground up, right? And the main thing that, well, there are a lot of things that we have in Austin. We have computer design, we have aerospace, we have space technologies such as launching systems. We have product development firms that take people's ideas from, let's say, a patent or an idea to inception to actually grow that product into a company. There's semiconductor, of course, which is huge. Electronics is huge, and electronics is in everything. We can barely pick up a hammer that doesn't have a chip in it or a printed circuit board in it. So all this stuff, everything interfaces. Even in mining, they're mining with robotic, huge machinery without manpower. But once again, it's going to take the manpower to get that to the point where we can actually use that product to create something else. So everything comes from an idea, and then it can be grown into a product, and it takes a lot to do that. It takes this whole infrastructure to do that.
Thank you, Kim, for talking about the diversity of offerings in your department. It's kind of like what I tell my students when they are first coming in as a new student to ACC. I tell them the window you're looking through right now is a little bit small, but once you take your first class, you start talking to other students, you start listening to the companies that visit campus or that are, the job postings, then your window starts getting much bigger, and you start learning about all the possibilities that are out there. So, Kim, for your students, can you talk about the physical work environment that they will experience, and would they be expected to work on large, small projects in a team or individually, or all of the above? Tell us about it.
You're exactly right, Alberto. It's all the above. So imagine that you get to be on a team, so you can work individually or on a team. And a lot of times you'll start on a team and then you'll break out and you'll work on a facet of that. And then it'll come back together, and all the people that worked on different things will bring their information or their design back together. And then you'll go out and see the processes and go to the tooling that makes those parts. Let's say if I designed a widget, I get to work with the whole team to make that widget. And then I get to go and help the teams that are actually designing the tooling to make that widget go to the factory. A factory has to be laid out for that process to work correctly. It's all spatial relationship kind of thing. And also what makes something work and what will stop it from working so well. And then in the end result, you could go out to a site and see the bridge that you just designed or you can go and take that widget in your hand and put it in there and see it work. You can go into the building that you designed, so you can see it from conception all the way to the end product. And that's what's so rewarding, as Laura mentioned before, is getting to see that entire process and knowing how you contributed to something.
In my former life, I was an engineer in the semiconductor industry, and that was definitely rewarding to know that you contribute to that final product. Thank you. Ed, I'm coming back to you now. So tell us, Ed, why are there so many of these jobs here in Austin and Texas specifically? And do you expect to see manufacturing continue to grow?
Boy, Alberto, I think something really special is happening here in Central Texas and the Austin area. There are so many companies moving here. There are so many interesting products being made here. So many entrepreneurs thinking of new ideas and new companies that can make a difference in the world. So this is a really expanding and growing sector here that has not seen its best days yet. They're coming, soon. So I'm really optimistic about the growth and everything that's going on in Central Texas.
I know wages are company and job specific, but can you tell the audience about how much money they can expect to earn, starting with an entry-level job to somebody with more experience?
Sure. Average wage in manufacturing right now is $90,000 a year across the board. That doesn't mean you're going to make $90,000 when you first start. But, typical wages for beginning entry-level positions are anywhere from, $14 to $18 an hour, probably, depending on what you're doing. But what you need to keep sight on is that they're going to give you training. They're going to give you a pathway to a career. And if you stick with it, show up, do a good job, get along with your teammates and other people you work with, you have a real chance to make that average, which can provide the lifestyle that you're looking for. So what's unique about manufacturing is the on-the-job training and the career opportunities that are there for the long term.
Thank you, Ed. And that's something that I think all of you have alluded to, and that people should know that these are not dead-end jobs. I mean, you can go as far as you're willing to go, in this field. Thank you all, and we're going to take a short break, but when we are back, we'll talk more about manufacturing programs available here at ACC.
We have the capacity to house 12 dogs and I think like 10 cats. We have 12 students this summer. They feed them if they need any medications or anything like that. Austin Community College worked hand in hand with APA and Bastrop from start to finish. We are very concerned about where these animals go. This is an animal. It has feelings, and we want it to have a forever home when we're done.
They work with our animals at their facility with their students, and it's a great beneficial win-win relationship where they are able to get hands-on experience and our animals are able to get extra care and services and handling through the program. Fostering a pet is a great way to help an animal without having to make that long-term commitment. And maybe you just enjoy having the puppies or the kittens and you can enjoy that stage, but then you can relive that puppy stage over and over again.
I never really got it until I got my own pet. The benefits to your life are just really beautiful and wonderful. Cleo's a wonderful soul and she's very active, which fits great with our life.
What are you waiting for? Seriously, it's been probably one of the best decisions we've made. Bringing her into our life brought us a lot of joy, a lot of laughs, and I think if you're considering, if you're not sure, definitely go and adopt.
Welcome back to the forum, where we are unpacking the question, what is manufacturing, and why individuals seeking new opportunities or careers paths should care. I want to hone in on Austin Community College and how it's preparing and training students for careers in manufacturing. There are clearly many types of jobs available, but how do we fit in? Let me begin with you, Laura. Can you talk a bit about your program, Advanced Manufacturing, and what students learn and do in it?
In advanced manufacturing, we have a range of programs, and the goal is to give them some fundamental understanding of different topics, all the way from materials, like why are materials selected for certain products, all the way to fabrication. How do we build it? And then we include, of course, automation, which is taking inputs, controlling those outputs based on the inputs, and then that feedback, which goes back and adjusts things, and that's what creates that automation. So we want to be able to, the students to come out of our program understanding everything from conception all the way to end product. And then of course we throw in those technical troubleshooting skills, how to read a schematic, how to take meters, and how to measure variables so you can see what's going on. And that will give you a better understanding of how to troubleshoot a system. So our department is a little bit of a broad sense. It gives you a picture of the bigger picture of manufacturing, meaning a little bit of everything.
All right. Well, let me ask you a follow-up on that. How do interested people in the community get started? Specifically, what are the different types of certificates and degrees in your program? And what are the differences between certificates and degrees? What are the benefits of each with regards to getting a job?
Okay. Well, I'll start with the fact that we do cover both our non-credit and credit programs in our manufacturing department. So if your first and foremost focus is to get a job, you need a full-time employment, and you want to get into manufacturing, then we have a program that's 4 to 8 weeks long called a Certified Production Tech certification. That's a national certification that requires you to take an exam in 4 different topic areas. And then once you pass those exams, you get the full certification. And what this is really, it's a gateway program into manufacturing. So if you don't have that background at all, this is a great way to get a foundation to get an entry-level position into manufacturing. From there, we try to make it easy to step forward towards the associates by having that same certification articulate to college credit, meaning if you decide to come back, we will start with 6 college credits from the beginning. From there, we try to encourage our students to do the certificate program, which is basically the first half of the associate's degree. And the reason we do that is because if for any reason a student has to stop coming to school, they can at least acquire some credential that says they've accomplished something. So the first half of the degree basically is our certificate program. And then we want them to continue on, of course, to our associate's degree. The benefits is that each level provides you the opportunity to apply for higher paying jobs. The more you know, both skills and education together make you more valuable to the company. And so that's what the goal is, to give you the first step and allow you to still continue to grow into those higher level positions.
And your department and mine are very similar. In fact, I always refer to them as sister programs. Differences, the certificate and degrees in my department, engineering technology, are based more on a strong electronics technician core. Our students develop those skills to be technicians in any electronic or electrical related field, while in advanced manufacturing, it's a little bit more broad, right? Can you tell the audience a little bit about the differences between electronics technician program and the advanced manufacturing program?
That's a big question that comes up. What's the difference? And the difference is the electronic technology is more focused on the core electronic skills you need to be a troubleshooting, to be in a troubleshooting position, meaning you're going to get all the fundamentals in electronics, and you're going to have the full picture of all the different signals that are being used to control processes. In the advanced manufacturing, you still get some of that, but you also have a broader perspective. In other words, you're looking at things from a broader range. While your electronics is more focused on the electronic controls, which is a big part, advanced manufacturing takes a portion of that and then broadens it to include materials, broadens it to include fabrication by taking some CNC courses in Kim's area. So I feel like it's the middle ground between electronics and fabrication, and it's kind of a broader spectrum. So depending on your interest, whether you want to be an excellent troubleshooter and really focus on the electronics, then that would be the electronic degree tracks. Or if you want to have a broader perspective, understand how things are made from the design point to completion, and still have some electronic foundation, then that would be manufacturing. on the flip side, like Kim said, if you want to know how to build a part, how to design a part, and or even a machine that builds a part, then that would be, you know, AECAD group, which is really focused on that section of manufacturing.
I'm glad you mentioned Kim, because that's the segue, right? Kim, the next question is for you. Tell us more about your program, Mechanical Computer Aided Design, and what do the students learn? What skills do they develop? And what kind of credentials do they earn in your department?
Thanks, and thanks for that lead in, Laura. I was just going to say, you know, everything comes from an idea, and it might start from a sketch on a napkin. It could start with nothing. And those ideas may be bounced around a group of people. So we work on projects, and it's more project-based rather than book sense and memorization in that regard. It's repetition. So getting that repetition, you get your hands-on training. And that's one big thing about all of our programs in this area, is that we get our hands on things, and it's not just only on the computer. So when we go to a computer, we can actually design something and test it inside that software. Sometimes IC layout, you have to test those circuits. When you get to the physical part, you have to physically test those things. And so getting your hands on the design, all right, so I have an idea, now I'm going to put it into some kind of computer format. That's going to be a repeated thing. And knowing the software before you get to industry is huge. That just gives you one more step up in your level of knowledge whenever you start your job. So when you learn all the softwares that are used, and we have kind of our thumb on the pulse of the softwares that are used in the region and in the United States, we teach those, and then you get to build it. Then you get to get your hands on the CNC machines, the 3D printers, building with the laser cutter, your civil plats or your architectural designs. And then, you know, the analysis sometimes is in the software, sometimes it's actually in the part. So we actually teach how to measure those things, whether it be something physical or something electronic. I think it's really important to get your hands on this, because these are project-based classes, and it really helps you feel comfortable when you step into that role in industry. And I think the comfort is where that will make or break you, you know, in when you first start a job.
Thank you, Kim. In fact, things you talked about also leading to the next question. So this question is for both Laura and Kim. Your programs fall under the category of workforce education. Some call it applied engineering or applied technology. Hence, these programs are designed to teach practical skills that are needed and sought for in industry. Like you said, you know, the program should have a significant hands-on component where students can, you know, they touch the real equipment, the tools, the meters, the computers, have the appropriate facilities to practice in. Can you both talk about the hands-on components of your program with regards to equipment, tools, computers, and facilities?
You're exactly right. I mean, that's the key, is to have that hands-on. As an engineer, you don't get that level of hands-on exposure. So that's personally my goal, is for people to feel comfortable with the equipment and how to use it. So in our programs, we learn basic desktop meters, such as multimeters and oscilloscopes and function generators, but then we try to get into, okay, how do we wire things up into a control module? So we use programmable logic controllers, and we at the end of the day, students should be able to know how to physically connect hardware to this controller, and also be able to write a simple program to control the inputs and the outputs. So we want them to have that comfort level with being able to create mini subsystems, so that when they go into the workplace and they see larger subsystems, they can kind of relate to those exact things. They know that there's inputs coming in and there's outputs, and then how do they work together, and how does the code or the program work to monitor that? So we also have some robotics that are a part of it, and how do you program a robot? Again, they may not do all those things, but at least the more you know, the more comfortable you are with touching things and trying things and learning. So that's what we want to instill in our students during our curriculum, is get them that comfort level with equipment and with being able to just wire things up and try it, right?
I talked a lot about the machinery and the software and the metrology tools. That means measurement tools. It could be something for electronic measurement. It could also be for size measurement. And there are electronic and manual tools that we would be using for that. The software always has a lot in that. But I think the hands-on approach allows you to make a mistake. If you can't make a mistake, you can't learn. And I come from experience to tell you my mistakes so that you don't make those in the field. That's why we have professors that have been in industry. And I think it's really important that you touch things, you see what doesn't work, what does work, and then you understand why. And that's why processes that go through a project-based learning is so important. The stair steps to that associate's degree are certificates that build on each other, and it kind of builds your level of comfort and knowledge base, so that when you go for that associate's or you go for your certificate, you've touched so many projects that you're pretty well rounded and good to start that new process of a new job.
All right, thank you, Kim. Well, Ed, I'm not going to leave you out of this segment. So this last question is for you. How does your organization, ARMA, work with ACC and these programs? What's been your experience working with ACC and with the students coming out of these programs?
You know, ACC is an integral partner to the manufacturing community, and I've been so impressed with the whole team, the staff, the programs. You know, one of the things I really like about working with ACC is when industry comes together and say that we need this, ACC responds and builds a program that really fits that demand. So, you know, I think from a student perspective, you can feel confident that you're getting an education that's been, you know, requested by industry. And, you know, another thing that's kind of, I think, in line with this conversation, we've talked a lot about jobs and how the more skills you get, the more money you can make. You know, a lot of these companies have tuition assistance programs where they'll pay for you to go take classes at ACC. So don't, you know, feel like you have to get an engineering level education before you start working in a plant. You know, you can start in the beginning in the entry level, and then they'll train you and pay for your education, you know, all the way up to that higher level. So, and ACC is a partner, you know, all the way in that. And I think it's a great relationship, and certainly one we look forward to continuing.
That is one of the missions of workforce programs is to educate and develop the skills of people in the community to, you know, support their own lives and support the local industry. So it's a symbiotic relationship. So one final thing I'll end with this segment is just to mention that ACC does have lots of locations. You know, we have campuses all throughout. We offer, you know, courses face-to-face, online, hybrids, and as you mentioned, some companies help pay for the tuition and fees. Well, there's also lots of scholarships and a great financial aid office that can help with tuition assistance at ACC. We're taking another break, but we will be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to the forum. In our last segment, I want to delve more into the partnerships, companies, and employers that ACC is working with to place students into paid internships during their time at ACC. But then once they graduate, students have a direct inroad, a direct path to get hired in some of these good paying jobs. Some of these companies we work with are Samsung, Applied Materials, Apple, and now Tesla. We recently announced a new program called Tesla Start, which is mounting at ACC to educate and prepare manufacturing students to then move to jobs in Tesla. So the first question is for Laura. Laura, can you talk us through Tesla's start at ACC, what it entails, who is eligible to apply for this opportunity?
Yes, we're really excited about this opportunity to work with Tesla. And we have been working together to help them develop their curriculum for this program. It's a 14-week program, which will prepare their entry-level technicians to support their automated manufacturing process. And they are basically taking applications. They're looking for a high school graduate. Again, the preference would be that they have some technical background. This is not an entry-level position. It's a little higher than that. So they're looking for people that have some skill sets. How they get it can vary. It could be education, it could be work, it could be just what they do in their own personal life. But having that background really makes you more competitive for this program. The ones that are selected for the START program will come to ACC for 14 weeks and go through a set of courses that will prepare them to be effective in their gigafactory when they are operational this fall. And they're going to be having several cohorts, so it's not just one group. They're planning to train, over 130 technicians over the next year in subgroups so that they can start staggering them into the company. At the end of the program, they get converted. If they're successful in completing the program, they get converted to a full-fledged employee, and they get to basically start their career at Tesla. So we're really excited to be able to support that effort.
Many people in the community may not know this, but this is the first program of its kind in the country that Tesla has put together with a community college. So we should be very proud of that, and the people in the community should know that they have an excellent opportunity to get to work at Tesla if they want to in this kind of field. Laura, can you briefly talk about other companies we have partnerships with and how it's been a positive experience for our students?
Absolutely. But let me add one more thing to that, if you don't mind, on Tesla. We are also trying to provide to people that are not really prepared or don't have that background. We have ways of helping these students get that technical background. So we are there not only to help the students that are ready to move into Tesla, but also prepare students for follow-up cohorts. So I don't think it's a disadvantage if you don't know anything, because we will help you get prepared. And like you mentioned, they're not the only company in town. We've been working with Samsung for years through their apprentice program. They will actually interview some of our students after they finish the first certificate or the first year of training or education. And if you're selected by for their apprentice program, they will actually support your education the second year. So there's lots of companies that are starting to look at ways to partner with us, and it makes sense because they need employees and they need trained employees. And at the same token, it gives our students that opportunity to explore truly what that career looks like and get their motivation to finish the program just by being part of the workforce. So the apprentice programs that we do with Samsung, for example, they work part-time and go to school full-time. And that's really an amazing opportunity for any student to be able to work in a place that they may end up working with when they graduate. Partnerships are expanding, so we're always looking for ways to to carry that over with other companies that might have an interest in developing their talent in partnership with ACC.
Right, thank you, Laura. Kim, can you talk about internships or job opportunities that are available in your area? Feel free to talk about any unique business partnerships that you have as well.
I was just going to say that civil or infrastructure is the biggest industry. When the recession hit us, there were still civil jobs. So we have to have infrastructure to get these products up and down the road, essentially. And if you've looked at I-35, you know that's a long-term job. The other things that I want to talk about are internships and how does that lead to another job. Internships, sometimes, particularly speaking about IC layout or mechanical, sometimes are in the summer. So you could take the summer and go and work on your internships, and you will actually be working on projects with that company. So it's not like you're just in there playing with a project that won't be used. It will be a product in the end result. The thing that Laura mentioned is that when you do work an internship with a company, they already know you, they know your skill trade, they're kind of growing you up. And a lot of companies want to grow you up the way that they want you to design something or to make something. They're going to teach you from the ground up. Whether you know a lot or not, you need to be open to learning their way of doing things, because it's so important that you're open-minded and teachable no matter how big your skill set. Now they'll build on that and they will love having some skill set come in. But once again, they have their way. Everyone has their own way of doing things, and you want to learn each way of doing things so that you can move through that process very easily.
Fortunately, in workforce, many of the internships are paid internships. So that is also a nice benefit to the student. Okay, Ed, so you work with many of these manufacturing employers. What has been their experience with our students who have done internships or have gotten jobs out of these programs? Talk about that, and also why is this relationship key to building a strong workforce here in Central Texas?
Yeah, I think the answer is multifold, Alberto. And I think what is maybe the main point is that industry has a lot of interest in connecting with young people, primarily so that they have their workforce met. But I know these individuals, and there is a genuine, interest in people connecting with people and helping them in their career. We see that in a variety of different ways. And I'll start with our high school programs. We have this terrific academy with Austin Community College where high school juniors and seniors can get skills needed within industry. We have about 11 companies that are supporting that and hiring students right out of that program as soon as they graduate, or providing internships. And when we did a call for mentors, for people to mentor students, we had like 40 people volunteer to connect with these students. And I'm talking about 40 leaders, really high people at these different companies that are very successful in their careers. So there's a chance there for students to really build a relationship with somebody that might, change their life. I think that's important. But as we talk about pathways, we have this high school level program, and then we also have rapid training programs that get people who are maybe already out of high school skills needed to get into industry. And again, it's the same thing. There's a lot of interest in those connections. There's been a really positive experience. If anything, industry really wants to see these programs scale and get bigger and have the opportunity to connect with more students. So it's very encouraging. I think it's an evolving great relationship, and I think it's going to be exciting to see what we do from here.
Thank you, Ed. That is a very important thing that you said about the companies wanting to help the community, right, and having some stake in the community. And while we mentioned the big companies by name because they are very large, you have a lot of medium to small companies. And if you think about it, a lot of these medium to small companies, they might be from the community and they have a real passion, to support the community. And that's something that is, people should know, there's benefits to working for a small to medium company,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, and if I could talk about that for a second, we have these great, terrific major employers here. They're mega and multinational companies like Samsung and Tesla and NXP and ICU Medical and Flex. But really, when you look at the manufacturing community at large, we're talking about a bunch of small and medium-sized companies. The average number of employees at a company is 33. But you walk in there and these 33 people are making, a very unique component that might go into a satellite or a missile or, a car or a piece of semiconductor equipment. And the advantage of working in a small company is that you get exposed to all levels of leadership, and you might really be provided more opportunity than you would have in a larger company. Larger companies have advantages in that they have more benefits and more structure around on-the-job training and that kind of thing. But both environments, are really clear pathways to learn and develop as an individual and in a career.
I used to tell my students that if you want to, I said it's great if you're a technician at a very large company, and your job is probably going to be relatively specialized. But I've told them, if you want to learn to be an excellent technician, go to work for a small company that maybe does not have as many resources, and you will learn how to do everything. I mean, you can. I mean, that is a difference. There are a lot of opportunities in smaller companies that.
Not only will you learn to do everything, but you'll be one of the key cogs in that company and a very valuable contributor, right?
And you get to grow with it as well,
right.
For sure. All right. Oftentimes people want to know if pursuing a program such as this, the ones we're talking about, are worth it, right? They want to know, well, how long is this going to take? How much is it going to cost? Will I get a good paying job? Kim, when you hear these questions, especially from, let's say, a new student or interested person, what do you tell them?
Well, the certificates, once again, are building blocks. So a certificate could be for 16 to 27 hours, and we have a very, very low tuition rate and lots of funding, especially in STEM grants, that's science, technology, engineering, and math, and all of our disciplines fall inside that. And what I would say is, if you are trying to figure out what you want to do, if you go to a restaurant and you don't know the language, it's a taste test kind of thing. You have to see if you like it. You have to see if it resonates with you. I didn't have an interest in my field until I was tossed into it. So sometimes, you want to try different things and you want to find your path, and then start through that certificate. Your certificates are your building blocks. It's going to make you feel more comfortable. And as you learn higher and higher in skills, it's going to pay off for you. And you can go to school at night. You can take continuing education classes that can help you through this, that are actually transferred to college credit classes through these programs. And you can take hybrid courses or online courses. So there are multiple ways to do this. No matter what your situation, it can get funded, and it can get it. You can find a way to take the class. So it's mainly just getting started.
I think we're a little bit out of time here already for this last segment. I want to thank you all for participating. And as we wrap up today, just want to tell everybody, we hope you learned something more about the booming manufacturing field and the vast jobs available in this industry right here in Central Texas. We have many more ways for people to find out. You can definitely go to austincc.edu/manufacturing, get more information about manufacturing. And of course, to find out about the ACC Tesla Start program, you can go to austincc.edu/Tesla. Thanks to our esteemed guests, Laura, Kim, and Ed, for participating in our discussion today. My name is Dr. Alberto Quinonez, and we'll see you next time.